r/AskReddit. Managers of Reddit, what made you fire an employee on their first day? The dude who showed up in pants so tight you could see his entire DCK and balls. It was a children's bounce play area/fun zone. We told him to go home and change. He came back over an hour later, with Starbucks, in blindingly white skinny jeans. Same issue. Parents complained the first time. The dude who showed up in pants so tight you could see his entire DCK and balls. It was a children's bounce play area/fun zone. That's ducked up. My DCK and balls are an adult bounce play area/fun zone. She just left. I couldn't find her anywhere. Called her later at her parents' home and fired her. Mom was pissed at me. I'm sorry ma'am, but I'm not in the business of employing people that don't work for me. Couldn't even have lunch that day because of her. So grumpy and hungry me just hang up. We had a kid from the country start at our business one day. He went to lunch and never came back. Later told the boss that he just couldn't handle it. I have a story like this, but it ended better. Day 1 I was in training and I felt completely over my head. I oversold myself at an Global 10 investment bank training program. Part of my hubris included me faxing the accounting test to my CPA, circa 2000. I told him back quote get a B on this thing. Anyway, back to the training session. I realized I couldn't BS my way working shoulder to shoulder with people smarter and more highly educated than me. Someone would rat me out and I would be humiliated and found out. Anyway, at lunch I said back quote to hell with it and called my girlfriend from the car and told her I was coming home. Just then I realized I left my suit coat on the back of the chair in the training room. I figured I would need that thing to interview for the next job. I walked in the room and people started filtering back in from lunch. I was stuck there until the end of the day. However, I got my shit together as the day wore on and my confidence built just enough for me to show up the next day. I spent the next 3 months with my nose in an accounting book and I paid a grad student to help me get these boring concepts to stick in my head. I eventually caught up. Here I'm 20 years later and I own an investment bank with 4 of my colleagues from that warehouse and I'm about 10 years away from retirement. If it wasn't for that suit jacket I would probably be the #1 salesman at a company that sells toner cartridges or something. The guy signed a non-disclosure as we were working around movie sets and production offices. Throughout the day he continuously asked if he could take photographs. Finally, I realized that his employment was not worth risking my own employment or the production company's information. He was relocated elsewhere, but he did not last long from what I hear. Ugh, I feel this. We had a secured room where we explicitly said no photo/video. People took video of some spicy food potluck they had. To their credit they deliberately framed the shot to exclude all the confidential data, but it was on YouTube and shared before I found out. I had to have some very unpleasant conversations with the team after that. Girl snorted in disgust when I asked her to clear a table in her section. Wouldn't be shown how to set a table and snapped at another manager. Do you even want to be here? I asked. Not really. Okay, grab your stuff. Good luck to you. Sounds like mommy made her get a job and she resented it. My cousin is spoiled as duck. I previously commented on how he sued a bouncer for assaulting him, driving the nightclub and the bouncer to huge debts as a result of litigation. Anyway, my cousin's dad owns many companies. One day, the office manager of one of those companies fired him because he always shows up after 2 p.m. at work. My cousin said he'll regret it. Unfortunately, the dad called the manager, told him to put him on the loudspeaker, and said no favors in front of everyone. Still fired. He eventually weaved his way back in after facing some huge dressing down from his dad. Well, second day for this one. Old guy kept dozing off during training. Denied it when I addressed him about it, and yet it kept happening. Fired him for it on day 2. Fast forward maybe 8 months. He emails me to let me know that he really had been falling asleep and I had been justified with the action I took. He realized there was an issue a few weeks after I terminated him because he fell asleep while driving and rear-ended another vehicle. Went to a specialist as a result, and they found that the Parkinson's medication he'd started shortly before beginning training was making him narcoleptic. Said he had rectified that with new meds and asked for a second chance. Gave him the opportunity for a do-over. And lo and behold, he's a good employee. He interviewed really well, seemed excited to be a part of, kept mentioning his mom in a what a nice boy way. He even brought his mom in after we hired him. She seemed really nice too. It's not so weird when you consider how small town is. His first day, he showed up like a ducking space cadet. Seemed to barely understand English, wasn't making eye contact with anyone but staring off into the distance like crazy, asking if he could take an early lunch 45 minutes into his shift. Dude was high off his gourd, and we politely told him it wasn't gonna work out 2 hours into the day. Chief officer of a merchant vessel here. Technically, second in command of the ship after the captain. A seaman joined our ship while our vessel was berthed in Mobile, Alabama. He was carrying a plastic water bottle during familiarization rounds on deck with the third officer, and when it was empty proceeded to throw the bottle overboard. My Russian captain saw this, calmly asked me to call the seaman to his office, gave back all his documents, asked the agent to book him a flight back to where he came from. All of this happened in a span of 3 hours. I'm not the manager in the story, but I was therefore part of it. Dude gets hired, starts training. During training, GM instructs him to take out the trash. He refuses, gets into an argument. Apparently, he didn't know that he was arguing with the GM despite the big fancy name tag with General MANAGER * printed in block letters on it. Gets sent home. For some reason, he still comes in the next day, smelling of alcohol. He grabs food, this is a restaurant, without paying, right in front of everyone, including a manager. He then proceeds to start coming at a server because they couldn't tell him where the tequila at silverware was, not the server's job. This evolves into a literal fight and the police get called. We never saw him again after that. This was all before his first actual day of work. I had an employee call off on her first scheduled day. On her second scheduled day, she showed up 2 hours late. This was a sub shop. We weren't open yet, but we had been in doing prep, baking bread, and building our sub trays for catering orders. We told her that this wasn't going to work out, and she got pissed. She started yelling that we were all racist assholes, and as she stormed out the door, she knocked over stacks of sub trays. We lost 15 trays to her tantrum. My boss went running out the door after her, and the girl's boyfriend got out of the car and reached behind his back swearing and telling my female boss that if she keeps stepping to them, that he would stop her good. We are pretty sure that he had a gun. My boss checked the license plate and came back in. We had all of this girl's information, address, phone, social security, etc. from the paperwork, so with that and the security footage of her destroying the trays, we were able to press charges for the damage. To stand out. He was laughing at the ice bin. Admitted he was tripping balls. We laughed. I said you can't work here like that. We laughed. He said, yeah I know. So that was fun. She stuffed all the 5s from a fresh register, meaning I knew exactly how many 5s were supposed to be there, in her bra, assuming everyone who was totally watching wasn't paying attention. Nobody was gonna shake her down, and the police were busy. She made $75 for roughly 30 minutes of training. My boss hired a new lab technician. I'm the manager, so he had to report to me. At the end of the shift he tried to clean medical equipment with dish soap. Cause he didn't want to wait for the machine to finish, which the other crew would be responsible for. He tried to microwave blood in a microwave for food. And last but not least, he forgot to put someone in the freezer for 5 hours. He was such a mess. What kind of job is this? Daycare. Thank you. I haven't laughed that hard in a while. It is what happened on the first day, but he didn't get fired until a bit later, when we figured it out. Managed our MSP team hired a bright guy. All seems good on the first day. At the end of the first day he received a phone call where he announced his father has passed away. 2 weeks of compassionate leave for funeral out of state later. He was supposed to start work again, but called from the car park to say he's too distraught. This goes on for 3 more weeks until one day we got a phone call from someone looking for this worker. It was his father. As it turned out, he's been running this scam where he gets jobs with multiple companies and pulls this same stunt, getting paid during the probationary period regardless of what happened for as long as he can. He set up salary payment to multiple accounts himself and to friends to avoid detection from tax agency. This guy was smooth. Lied and cried. Conned a lot of us. Not sure what happened to him, but we reported this to the tax agency for a case of tax fraud. RedditEyes. Scouring Reddit to bring you the best commentary. Like and subscribe for more. See you soon, fellow Redditors.